China and its BRICS partners just dropped a bombshell at their summit in Russia. They're actively working on a plan that could end US dollar dominance. And it involves gold. I've spent the past week analyzing their official documents and central bank data, and what I found is shocking. Not only are they building their own payment systems to bypass US control, but they're also stockpiling massive amounts of gold. In this video, I'll show you exactly what they're planning and how it could affect your money starting next year. The evidence is hiding in plain sight. Right now, nearly every international trade has to go through US dollars, even when China buys oil from Russia. This means American banks can monitor and control these transactions. But BRICS nations, which make up 35% of the world's economy, are fed up with this system. They're tired of US sanctions and financial control. Think about it. When you control the currency, you control the rules. That's why China and its partners are creating their own financial highways. Even trades between Chinese yuan and Indian rupees are starting to bypass the dollar completely. This shift is happening faster than most Americans realize. What started as 5 countries has now exploded into a massive economic alliance. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa have been joined by Saudi Arabia, Iran, Egypt, Ethiopia, and the UAE. Together, they now represent 40% of the world's population. And here's what mainstream media isn't telling you. Another 20 countries are lining up to join. Saudi Arabia's membership is particularly crucial. They've controlled global oil markets for decades, and now they're siding with China. This isn't just some club of developing nations anymore. These countries combined have enough economic power to actually challenge Western financial dominance, and they're getting more organized every day. Remember when the West cut off Russia from SWIFT payments? Well, that was a wake-up call for the entire BRICS alliance. They've quietly built alternative payment systems that work completely outside US control. China's already rolled out their CIPS system, and now they're testing something even bigger called RIDGE, a blockchain-based payment network that 30 central banks are secretly watching. But here's the real kicker. These countries aren't just creating new payment routes, they're actively de-dollarizing their trade. When Russia sells oil to India now, they're using local currencies instead of dollars. And China's helping everyone set up similar arrangements. This isn't some far-off plan. It's happening right now, and most Americans have no idea about it. The numbers I'm about to show you are mind-blowing. BRICS currencies in global trade have jumped from just 1.6% in 2000 to nearly 7% today. That might not sound like much, but here's why it matters. This growth is accelerating fast. The Chinese yuan is now being used in more international deals than ever before. Saudi Arabia is accepting yuan for oil. African countries are dropping the dollar for trade. Even European companies are starting to invoice in Chinese yuan. But what's really interesting is how they're doing this. Instead of creating one new currency to compete with the dollar, they're building a web of interconnected local currencies. This makes their system much harder to stop because there's no single point of failure. And the timing of all this couldn't be more strategic. Now here's where things get really interesting. While everyone's been focused on their payment systems, BRICS central banks have been on a massive gold buying spree. China just reported their biggest gold purchase in 55 years. Russia has doubled their reserves. Even India is stockpiling gold at record levels. They're not doing this by accident. These countries know something big is coming. Think about it. Why would they suddenly need so much gold unless they're planning to back their trade with something more solid than paper promises? The Federal Reserve knows this is happening. They just don't want to talk about it. But the numbers don't lie. and this gold accumulation is accelerating every month. Let's talk about what's really going on behind the scenes. While BRICS isn't creating a single new currency like many thought, they're building something potentially more powerful: a complete parallel financial system. China is leading the development of a blockchain-based payment system called RIDGE, with 30 central banks already watching closely. Think of it as their version of SWIFT, but one that the US can't control or shut down. Here's the genius part. Instead of trying to replace the dollar overnight, they're gradually increasing trade in their own currencies. The numbers don't lie. BRICS currencies in global transactions have more than quadrupled since 2000. But what's really interesting is how much gold these countries are stockpiling. They've increased their share of global gold reserves from just 4.5% to over 22%, and they're still buying. But here's what most people miss. BRICS countries still only hold about 10% of their reserves in gold, while the global average is 20%. This means they need to buy another 8,000 tons just to catch up. That's a massive amount of gold that needs to be purchased in the coming years. Are they preparing for something bigger? While they haven't announced a gold-backed currency yet, these moves suggest they're certainly building the foundation for a new financial system that could reshape global trade as we know it. So what does all this mean for your money in 2025? First, expect more market volatility as BRICS countries continue shifting away from the dollar. If you're heavily invested in dollar-denominated assets, now might be a good time to think about diversifying. Gold, in particular, could see significant price movements, and not just because of increased central bank buying. Smart investors are already positioning themselves for this shift. Remember, when major economies like China and Russia make big moves, they rarely announce them beforehand. By the time it hits the mainstream news, the biggest opportunities might already be gone. Speaking of China and gold, there's something really suspicious going on that most people aren't talking about. In my previous video, I uncovered how China has been secretly manipulating gold prices for years, and what I found was shocking. If you haven't seen it yet, click right here, especially the part about their sudden market exit. Trust me, once you understand their manipulation strategy, a lot of what we discussed today will make even more sense. You'll see exactly why they're making these moves now and what it means for gold prices going forward.